Good evening, everybody. System Chalk here with the 191st episode of our first YouTube run through House of Light, the expansion to Book of Hours, playing as the archaeologist. I was distracted from the last recording, so I know I had a whole bunch of plans that I laid out, and I'm sure I will stumble over them. But the biggest one was we have got a book that we're finishing this morning. And then I am going to want, where I can, to sort of level up the skills based on the lessons that I have. And then we had a little bit of a track record going in terms of getting some of the branches committed. So I will still do that over the course of the session. But let's focus on the priority first. Let's read the Book of Suns. Okay, and actually this is going to be one that we set aside in the librarian's chamber. So, the Sheretic Book of Suns, a radically different text from any of the other versions of the Book of Suns attributed to Hagar, Queen of Shur, Mother of Wolves. Set down with reverence before the intercalate by one who understood what would come to pass. Apocryphal chapters foretell the means by which the sun and splendor and the forge might circumvent the impossibility of their joining through proxies that are in some sense themselves. The Great Counterfeit. The sun and splendor and the forge of days could not be joined, but Sunset Celia and the Swan King could. This secret is the trick of it. So I'm going to take a quick minute here just to write this out. So just as before, I was hoping to write down the aspects. And Sacra Solis Invicti. And then we'll give it the record. There we go. So, I mean, if I have a bunch of nectar that I need, I guess I can toss that in there. I don't think I put any thought into keeping a memory, but I also don't recall if I had. I know I had the revelation, but probably not worth dwelling on too much right now. Let's get some money. So, let's go back to the Tree of Wisdoms. So we have taken care of things up to Schola Kosophi. I guess technically what I started was a path through, so partially through the Bright Arts, and then we did the Night Arts in one go. So I wasn't originally going to do this, but let's actually just finish this off and say we'll do the arts unregarded. So moving on to Bosk, we'll be getting everything from 4 to 9. Excuse me. The lore of the primeval wood, rarely written, often felt. So furs and feathers are the first, or I guess is the first skill. Beasts, birds, husbandry, harvest. The well in the wood. When the first hunters were starving in the wood in the days before its darkening, they found a deep and crimson well. In it they drowned the beasts of the earth, so that the beasts could be reborn threefold, and the hunters could feast. So the Red Grail came to be, and so ever since she feeds us, and she feeds upon us. This the matriarchs of the knot have taught us. I believe it's desires and dissolutions next. The boundaries between flesh, pearl, and pleasure are equally contingent. Red the dawn and black the night, and white what's left. Above we see, beneath we know. Herbs and infusions. All right. I made a mistake here, and I've actually... so one option I technically have would be to try and reload, but you know what? We're gonna fix this. So, herbs and infusions is currently 4. It needs to be higher. So what I didn't appreciate here was I wrote down what I needed in Bosk, but I wrote them down in the wrong order. So I had furs and feathers, desires and dissolutions, herbs and infusions, and orchids and narcotics. But what I didn't pay attention to was furs and feathers having a 6 beside it, and desires and dissolutions getting a 7 beside it. So the digression is going to be to get herbs and infusions up to 6 to replace. And then orchids and narcotics also needs to go up to 7. All right. Lesson learned. So there's a couple things that I need to do here. Herbs and infusions needs heart in its for its upgrade, and then orchids and narcotics needs grail. We don't currently have those available, so that's going to drive me to get some more lessons. In fact, one of the things it might do, if we go down here, well, this will get me the grail, but that's maybe not the thing I need right now. Huh. Do none of these have heart? Alright, I think the Shaven Lock Tantress probably just saved my bacon. But that's 1, and I need... Let me just double check that. I believe it is 2 that I need. Yes, and in fact, that's going to be the sort of thing that I put on my notes. Okay. So, heart or nectar? I believe surgeries and exsanguinations will cover us for that. Yes. Okay, now I also need to think about Grail, but the Morphe Codex will cover us for that. I don't think that's going to cover us. I was hoping to get clever with this, but there we go. Okay, so an unexpected detour, but there we have it. I guess the one bit of good news I have is that it won't be so difficult to get herbs and infusions up. So let's focus on... We'll get the paper read. I'm not going to worry about bringing... Well, yeah, let's not worry about Reverend Timothy today. Investigate the object. You won't use this up or consume it by doing this. So let's say we're going to go storming out of the gate for for herbs and infusions. So at the reading room desk, we will read something with an impulse. I am trying to remember where we left this off. I'll start with ambrosial. We will also read Apollo and Marsyas. I'm trying to remember, I think we've kind of gone the whole way through, so we'll go up to Callicite Supplications. And I think that's it. But we'll make do. So there's gonna be a little bit of a detour on some of the leveling. Sorry, we're gonna have to wait for one of the books anyway, so I shouldn't be completely waiting for So I think in this case it was solutions and separations I was going to level up. So that's Knock and Moth. Although I don't have that many leftover desks. Okay. And then as far as the phonographs and all of that are concerned, that's on hold just because I need to sort of digest what we've got right now. So again, an unfortunate oversight. If I had been paying attention to the numbers to the side, you know, clearly that wouldn't have happened. But this is kind of the drawback of the previous ones. As it turns out, wound up being in order, whereas these other ones I was filling in some gaps. We'll still be, you know, we're fine. But I am going to need to... I'm just going to need the time to reorder things. The one thing that is nice, though, is that it does give us an excuse to just do a little bit more with our lessons and memories. Because I was thinking that I'd just have a big reading session without any purpose, whereas here we're definitely directing our attention towards priorities. Nothing's history when first it happens. I feel like there should be something with the consider verb that I'm doing right now. I know eventually it'll be a treadmill for a full belly makes a helpful friend. Yeah, we'll leave it aside. So there'll be a batch of books that, excuse me, we'll cycle through just so that we can achieve our intermediate goals with these lessons. And then we can get back on track. I think got 5 seconds for one of these. So. All right. Ambrosial. Ambrose Westcott's inventive, one might even say pioneering or indeed buccaneering essays into kitchen craft. Westcott proudly announces his intention to transform cuisine and to become an engine of alchemy, a fount of war. Westcott compares the ferocity of fire with the intensity of appetite as, in essence, one essence. A fire's ability to transform and destroy grows when it is offered the correct fuel. So too, he implies, can a sufficiently inspired appetite allow its possessor to consume greatly, strangely, unwisely. Apollo and Marsyas, the libretto of a lost opera concerning the contest between Apollo and Marsyas and its tragic outcome. The librettist is identified only by their initials. In the original myth, Marsyas lost the musical contest and was flayed by Apollo, who later regretted it. In this version, Marsyas' skin has a further history. The skin of Marsyas gives oracles and is later smuggled to Phrygia, where the priestesses of Cybele use it for a drum. At the climax, the striking of the drum drives would-be violators of the priestess to suicidal madness. The opera ends with a wistful hymn from the youngest priestess on the beauty of mountain pines. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. Callicite Supplications, prayers addressed to the Red Grail by the Sisterhood of the Triple Knot. If we should remember not, let our children remember in their redmost dreams. One prayer describes how sufficient Grail aspect can be used with Tridesma Hira rites to give a life, a little life, to a doll twisted from fabric. The Rose of Hypatia, a volume of collected teachings of the Sisterhood of the Knot, that arcane contemplative order that existed in all histories, but in some was very powerful indeed. This was recorded by Hypatia and dedicated to Saint Nympha. Saint Nympha is described as not born but cultivated, the sentience that became the saint. The sentience that became the saint, Hypatia indicates, inhabited a sinner's corpse in order to enable that sinner's redemption. Not all dead enter the mansus by the winter door. Not all dead enter the mansus at all. And the other eye of the serpent, in which the Hesiarch Signifer attempts to resolve certain mysteries of lightning. Signifer considers lightning to be the division, the connection, the joined serpent. The serpent's eye is said to be the sun, but as the division and connection, it must have a second eye. Signifer considers and rejects 3 times the hypothesis that the moon is the serpent's other eye, insisting that it and the sun do not share in nature. This, as much as the serpent business, is what got him burnt by the church. He proposes that the serpent's teeth are towers, that the serpent's mouth is a gate, that the serpent is the devourer of Ys, and therefore that the serpent's other eye is amber. Now, first thing I want to do is recover the the cheerful ditties, because that'll get me some much-needed heart. Moving on from that, I think... Yeah, Moth and Knock are not the easiest for me to work with right now. Let's do a secret threshold at Ambrose's desk. So that's 2 of the 6 that I need. Okay. Moth and knock. In a pinch, I can also use the pattern, but... okay, I think we're on to Gospel of Zacchaeus, and that's about it. So then that does invite the question, what do I want to do with Sacra, Solus, Invicti? So we've got Watchman's Paradoxes, and Strings and Songs. Or if I go from the top... Well, technically Inks of Revelation, but let's set that aside for now. Yeah. All right, let's see where it goes. If I'm going to do that... gee... can grab some lantern, but... Alright, well, we'll push ahead. Holy smokes. Alright, so I somehow need to get 4 more moth using 2 items. Or just accept defeat, because apparently I didn't put a skill in here, and I should feel like a clown. I think with enough of the crap we've got lying around the house, though, surely we should not have a problem. I guess the big question is, what power 2 things do I have? Tanglebrag, which I never find any use for otherwise. The only catch here is I won't be able to see what Ubisunt does. Alright, the Shaven Lock Tantra, also known as the one who has shaven his hair. This, the story goes, is the lore that even the shape-changing Vanaras rejected. The Tantra speaks glowingly of those who are prepared to abandon their old self to seek a new and higher self. It warns that once the change has truly begun past the third mark, a return to the old self is dangerous and painful. Whisper your secrets into the earth, burn them in fire, scatter them in the sea. Still they will cling to your hair, the Tantra cautions. It provides an occult riddle that it claims sometimes is the answer to the riddle of the Hunter's Gate. So there's our rights of the roots for us to play with, and a newfound impulse, which we have space for. Okay, priority number 1, throw all that into herbs and infusions. So I also want to prioritize herbs and infusions because I do have a couple of spare memories. This one will be pretty easy to settle though. Everybody's going to want a piece of the impulse, it feels like. Okay. The Morphe Codex, a priestess of the Sisterhood of the Knot, claims to have discerned the true meaning of the Thunderskin's birth. The writer credits the Red Grail, the Ring-Yew, and the Horned Axe, the powers the Sisterhood reveres, with agreeing a final treaty between the Hours of the House and the Hours they displaced. The Thunderskin loved the Yew, and the Grail destroyed him as restitution for the slaying of the Horned Axe's sisters and brothers. The Thunderskin entered the Mansus through the Peacock Door, a privilege never given to the Witch and Sister, but then their merit was much less. The writer admits that entry through the Peacock Door is unseemly, but insists that under the circumstances there was no other way. Why did I read the Morphe? Oh, right, because this was a new reading. Well, that's inconvenient. I am curious if I can jam that in. Alright, I can't believe I get away with that, but I'll take it. By their marks ye shall know them, a monster hunting initiate of the hour named the Colonel, who identifies herself as Little Sophia, provides advice on finding the weak spots of Long. Little Sophia observes dryly, should one desire to slay an immortal, it is most practical to do so before they become immortal entirely. She details the marks, the changes that Long undergo as they abandon their mortal condition. As the Lantern Long begins to abandon its flesh, its skin becomes loose, its bones soften. The 6th mark can be observed thus, when the flesh between the finger and thumb can be pulled to the final finger joint. I think I'm just going to catch up on the readings at this point. I'm going to need a minute just to clear my head a bit. All right, on the matter and deeds of serpents. This was probably the prophecies of the Naga rendered into English and illustrated by William Midnight in Paris in the 1880s, but it shows a number of divergences from that text. It's certainly quite recent by the standards of Vac texts. The serpent folk, called the Great Hooded Princes, came to know the order called the House of Leith and warred across the miles with them. They made an alliance with the Mother of Ants, whose children they had been. The text describes how the Great Hooded Princes escaped, or will escape, the 5th history, where they had died, or were doomed to die. They engaged in a secret conquest of the land of the Great River, called India in some histories, and have ensured that all other conquests of that land are false conquests. The Instruments of the Heart. Sister Isabel, then precentress of the Abbey Church of St. Brendan's, engages in dialogues with a heart-long of a kind called Dwendrazon that has taken partial possession of her body. The Dwendrazon, like all its kind, usually dwells in the Mansus, but can enter the physical world by manifesting as music and take possession of a willing or semi-willing mortal who hears and loves that music, like Isabella. Isabella records her dreams of the High Mantis, where she is accorded the Dwendrazon status and titles. In return, the Dwendrazon enjoys what it calls Sejura, a welcome oblivion. Our mostly blessing is that we may never cease, except in Sejura. There is something more that Isabella refers to as the Sejura Magna, but she laments that her Dwendrazon will not tell her exactly what that might be. So they used to say, "My youth, the day is done, and so am I, but I've earned my pay." A 16th century, the Queen's Turn, a 16th century translation of the Barrowchild's account of Lagia's turn, when Lagia, the Queen unsated, was offered the opportunity to enter the service of the Hours of the Triple Knot as long as she repudiated her brother-lover Antaios. Lagia accepts, setting aside the arts the low red sun associated with Antaios. She bargains, however, for freedom for her daughters. The Hours of the Triple Knot accept casually, knowing that Lagia has devoured her daughters, but wily Lagia has decided, in the secret hollow of her heart, that she will adopt any who ask, if they prove their fierceness. The traditions described here, the ones generally described as hill and hollow, are associated with Lagia before her turn, but now that she is a name of the Red Grail, they might also be safely used before an altar of the Triple Knot. The Gospel of Zacchaeus, an extremely heterodox account of the Nazarene Messiah and his works, describing his ascension to the mansus through the opening of his body. 7 were the wounds of his body, 7 the doors of the house, 7 the lesser aspects of the hours, and Knock the aspect above all, for the mother of ants is the mother of salvation. The book includes a description of a rite which was used to raise a corpse to half-life, in memory of he who bled for the wood, but the marginalia claim that the mother of ants no longer permits use of this rite. And De Oris, Book 2, in Latin, a 19th century reprint by the indefatigable Nathaniel Darcy Evers of a 14th century Latin translation of a 4th century work. This volume deals mostly with the hour called Lionsmith, the hour called the Tribune of Scars, and with their enmity. The Lionsmith makes monsters to defeat the Tribune, but the scars of the Tribune are each a weapon. Now, I think I am short on everything that I need. But I can use the occult scrap to keep us going on the upgrade. All right, yeah. I'm going to. I'm definitely in the next stream. I'm going to take the rest of the day sorting this out, and I'm definitely going to write down a to-do list here. So I'm just going to speak out loud while I do this, because I wrote down herbs and infusions to level 6 and orchids to level 7. But I want my first priority to be upgrading solutions and separations. Okay, so after that we were going to do Watchman's Paradoxes and Strings and Songs. And then finally we will restore the occult scrap. It's definitely a full day ahead of me. So again, a bit of a silly digression here, but in the end, all that it's really done is given me a slightly unconventional way to level up all of my all of my skills. So one of the other things that I want to do in the fairly near future, I don't want to take up a desk for it right now, but if I can, I would like to get invitations to Eason and Actistus to worry about the further story. And then following that, in the next season, we should expect another, another event coming up. As far as the more mundane work goes, I'm actually just trying to think if there's any point in me assembling these. So I'm going to put this at the front of the queue just so I can get the inks of power taken care of. Then once upon a time, these were all moon books, but... figured it doesn't hurt to consolidate here just so I can make it a little bit easier to look. Okay. But yeah, so when we get back on track, we will commit the last skills to the arts unregarded. We will we'll go back to our little plan to sort of read one Newman text, watch one film, listen to one phonograph. I'm not quite sure I want to do that now, though, given that I have 4 skills that I'm going to be leveling up before too long. Which, you know, we'll probably have that done within a day or two, but it's not like I want to run out and read something like, sorry, not by their marks, you shall know them, but Where's She Gone? Like the 16 Rose book. I don't know. I feel, also too, I shouldn't freak out too much because the Turquoise Hand is the most likely one we're going to read next, so that's just 2 lessons. But yeah, I don't know. It'd be nice to have a slightly more ordered way of going through that. But also somewhere in between all of this, we will also get Reverend Timothy to open up the door. The biggest one right now is just we had quite a distance to go with herbs and infusions. So once we've closed that gap and then we've made orchids and narcotics sort of follow. We're back on track. We'll be able to do the remaining skills, and then we'll know better for next time. So I'll keep a closer eye on preservation, which also has a weird ordering, and birdsong for that matter, and you know, that'll just sort of shake out naturally. But all of that's going to need to wait till next week. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Until then, and have a nice weekend, and take care.